So we basically woke up one morning and I remember Lewis just like yelling across the room being like, hey, like, why do we have so many sales? And like the last thing that I thought would be the influencer of all influencers has just posted about us organically.
Building a business is tough and doing it alone even tougher. Welcome to She Talks, your go-to podcast for raw, relatable and ridiculously useful business advice. I'm Lisa Jones and I'm both a mum and a serial entrepreneur, and I'm here to help share real stories and proven strategies to help you scale up your business. Let's do this together. Ever had a problem and thought, surely there's a better solution? Well, that's exactly how Contour Cube was born. In this episode, I'm joined by the brilliant Sarah Forrai, founder of Contour Cube, viral video queen, and one of our coaches here inside SheCom. From TikTok success to celebrity shoutouts, and yes, I'm talking about Kendall Jenner, Sarah shares how a creative idea turned into a global product and how she's navigated everything from Shark Tank and copycats to building influencer buzz and expanding into skincare. If you're ready to grow your product brand with confidence, creativity, and content that converts, then this episode is a must listen. Be creative to solve a problem or maybe to set themselves up financially or all of the above. I want to know, why did you start Contour Cube?
Yeah, I think it would be a mixture of all of the above, but I think the main one for me would be creativity. So I've always seen myself as a creative person, and I never really thought that creativity and entrepreneurship sort of went hand in hand. So you need creativity to navigate the business space, and you need creativity to solve everyday problems. And I think that's what Contour Cube did. So my mom really inspired the product. So it really encouraged me to ice my skin every day. And I do everything my mom tells me to do. So there I was like icing my skin in the bathroom. And I really love the feeling. It really brightened and tightened my skin. It woke me up, it depuffed, and it helped me soothe my breakouts. But the whole process was so awkward, slippery, and messy, and it froze my fingers off. And one of the things that people might not know about me is I have something called Raynaud's phenomenon, which means I'm ultra sensitive to the cold in my fingers and my toes to the point where they go numb. So holding ice cubes wasn't like really an option for me. And so, yeah, one of the reasons why I wanted to create Contour Cube was to protect my fingers from getting cold, but also just making the whole ice facial experience easier and to create something that really hasn't been created before. So there hasn't been a tool that is designed for facial application. So one that is designed to fit the contours of your face, that is as beautiful and aesthetic as the rest of the products in my bathroom. So yeah, definitely born out of creativity.
Well, I love this. And let's break this down a little bit further for listeners. So one of the things that I find a lot in the e-commerce space is women who solve a problem. And I hear like mad innovator excitement in your voice when you explain why you created Contour Cube. But one of the barriers for so many women who have that innovation idea is the marketing side comes hand in hand with it, and one can't live without the other. And I know you have a super interesting background. So tell us a bit about your background that allowed you to take an idea but actually execute it really, really well.
Yeah. So as Steve Jobs said, you can't really connect the dots looking forwards. You can only connect the dots looking backwards. So looking back, I didn't really realize at the time that every job that I had was really preparing me, or at least helping me like launch what Contour Cube is today. So I actually started in a graphic design studio, and that really immersed me in understanding how to build a brand identity, logos, and beautiful typography. And then from there, I worked for a production agency. So really massive creative agencies like Ogilvy, Clemenger Group, like Saatchi & Saatchi would come to the production agency I worked for with like a wild idea. And it was up to us to come up with how we would launch that and bring that to like a tangible product. So that's kind of where my passion for coming up with ideas and seeing them into reality came to be. And then after that, I actually worked at The Iconic for 4 years. So really immersing myself in the e-com space and like my first kind of step into the online retail space. So looking back, I guess my key skills were really in like brand building, and like I had the confidence in coming up with like a product idea and seeing it to life, but I had actually no idea how I would market a product at all.
That is an incredible background. And I think I can speak on behalf of the listeners right now that we're all a bit jealous, to be honest, that you had that as a background, because I can see how beneficial that's been to the journey that Contour Cube's been on. Let's talk about the journey then, because I need to tell the listeners for just a red hot minute that I've had the pleasure of knowing Sarah for a couple of years now, and I've watched how unbelievably clever Sarah and her partner Lewis are when it comes to marketing. And we're going to talk a lot today about TikTok and influencers, because this is, short form viral video content is one of the ways that you have like blown Contour Cube up. There's been a couple of other levers. We're going to talk about Shark Tank too, but let's talk about Kendall Jenner. Let's start at the concept of an influencer mentioning or liking your products. How did that happen? And then how did that help sales?
Yeah, so that was such a surreal experience. So we basically woke up one morning and I remember Lewis just like yelling across the room, being like, hey, like, why do we have so many sales? And my first thought was like, oh, maybe a TikTok went viral, or maybe we've had like an article feature or something, because back in the day, that's kind of what drove an increase in traffic at the time. And like the last thing that I thought would be the influencer of all influencers has just posted about us organically. So I looked at my phone and it was like blowing up. I had all my friends like send me these screenshots and they're like, oh my God, I wish you were awake right now. Like this is happening. So I ran to Kendall Jenner's like Instagram page and there it was. She had a story holding the Contour Cube saying, love this for my morning ice facials. And I just like screamed for like 10 minutes. And I was like, wait, how did this even happen? This is so wild. And honestly, I put it all down to like the virality that we were getting on TikTok. Like we were just pumping out the content and we were really at one point in time getting a minimum of 100,000 to 1 million views. Like each video was just going nuts. And I think some people think there's a little bit of a myth bust here where people think, oh, Kendall posted and then we went viral. It's kind of the opposite way. So we kind of were posting consistently. Like we were able to get a lot of traction on our TikTok videos. And I think that's how it landed in her hands. The other cool thing was about a year later, we got an email from Poosh, which is Kourtney Kardashian's e-com platform where she kind of curates all her favorite like wellness products. The team basically asked, do you guys ship within the US? And we were like, yeah, like, well, how come? And they were like, basically each year, all the sisters plus Chris pick one gift of choice for the Kardashian-Jenner gift guide. And this year, Kendall's picked Contour Cube as her gift of choice. And I was like, wait, what? So like, I just couldn't believe it. Like, honestly, like who knew that, celebrities like that post organically.
Right, because you think it's all just gifted and paid for content, but it is actually true in amongst all of the gifting and the paid content. They're probably genuinely looking for things they love, right?
Yeah, definitely. Yeah. And it just shows that she genuinely loves the product, like you said, because it's unpaid and she's just sharing her love for things that she uses in her routine, which is just wild.
That is wild. And I want to okay, I need to call the elephant in the room. I've heard you twice now on the podcast so far in the last 5 minutes or so mention back then, or we used to get when you're talking about virility and the way that you drove sales. So I want to ask, let's break that down and talk about it. Why would you assume that the virility you used to get would drive sales, but it might not now? Like what's shifted in? And I want to also tell the listeners, if you don't get this already, Sarah's genius zone is most definitely short form video content, and she is the biggest legend you've ever met at it. So tell us the good, the bad, and the ugly.
TikTok really catapulted our business into the mainstream. So we were posting, and actually what's more interesting to me is actually the first video we ever posted wasn't really a viral video. So we posted a video. It was just me standing in my living room describing the product and why I created it. And it probably hit maybe 10,000 views and we saw immediate sales. And that really blew my mind because I'm like, no one's ever seen me before. No one's ever seen the product before, but somehow I created trust for someone to go to a website, which wasn't really contourcube.com. We had another business at the time. So it looked pretty sus. And they bought the product, which really was showed me how powerful this platform really was.
Wait, before you go on, I need to break that down even more for listeners. So yes, they liked your video and they trusted you to buy it. But let's be honest, they also bought it because they thought it would solve a problem they have. They were like, I have puffy eyes every morning. Here's a solve for that. And that comes back to a basic marketing concept, right? People buy products if it solves a problem for them at its first and foremost.
100%. And even the thought of, I was just standing in my living room chatting to somebody as if they were my best friend on FaceTime. There wasn't much to it. There wasn't a crazy amount of creativity that went behind it. It was just literally speaking to the camera. So that's why it was so crazy to me.
So warm engagement, a big part of the virility, right? Being relatable.
Yes. About the third video that we posted, that's when we really went crazy. So within 24 hours, we hit like 1 million views and we kind of sold out of all our products. And it was just a really surreal moment. And that's when I was like, oh, okay, cool. We've like tested if there is demand for this product, and there definitely is. And we weren't just shipping within Australia, we were shipping to a global audience from day one. So that was another really cool thing about TikTok. The other thing was just having this open conversation with our customers just through the comment section. They're like, oh, I love this one, but are you going to launch any other colors? And I was like, what colors do you want to see from us? So having that open conversation really early on was really helpful because I wanted to have this as a collaborative thing with our audience. The other thing was basically we had like major retailers reach out to us as well. So within 3 months, we had Urban Outfitters reach out to us to kind of get stocked in their back to school campaign. And that was another kind of like crazy moment for me because I was like, this platform is so wild. Like we're getting like wholesale partnerships come out of this as well. And then we saw our community grow really quickly. So from like 10,000 to 100,000 to 400,000. And now we have like 1 million people across all platforms, like, you know, following us in our journey, which is really cool.
So what do you think shifted then? Like back to your elephant in the room comments about what used to work to drive sales, like what's moved in this space for you in the last few years?
I think maybe the introduction of TikTok ads. So there wasn't too much of a push towards like paid ads on TikTok. It was very much organic. And I feel like that was really what was working for us. And it still works today, just not to that extent. Sometimes I guess we see the virality, we see a spike, but I think now the platform's really pushing you towards like paid ads on the platform. So that's what I think I'm coming for. Like back then it was wild because like we had 6 months of just pure sales with no ad spend. So that's why, yeah, I think that's the main shift really.
So the heyday of TikTok. And so what does a brand like you do now then? And I also want to say, like, this is so similar to Instagram, right? Like I sometimes interview brands here on the potty who like, you know, might have started 5, 6 years ago, maybe 7 years ago. And they were like, man, I just made so much money on organic Instagram posts and reels. And then I didn't. And it's difficult now. And I'm hearing a little of that from you with TikTok. So what does a brand like you do when that kind of market moves?
I think it's just really important not to focus on the one platform and diversify. So, you know, we repurpose everything on TikTok onto Reels, and we also repurpose everything onto YouTube Shorts. And so like now when we look at our Shopify backend and we're like, where's all our traffic coming from? One of the top things is YouTube Shorts, which is something that you wouldn't really expect. So really just not relying on the one platform and making sure like you're kind of making that one piece of content work for you across a lot of different platforms and diversify your audience. We definitely do paid ads on like the Meta side of things, and we've seen that platform work really well. So I think like focusing on one aspect and one paid area instead of trying everything, and like, yeah, just nailing that one thing first and then trying other platforms later.
It's so interesting. And I love the concept of, you know, omni-channel or 12 eggs in 12 baskets. We talk about that a lot here at SheCom. It's one of our really core beliefs for what we teach our clients around never assuming that you can put all your eggs in, say, the TikTok virility or, you know, organic TikTok or like paid Meta, for example, because we see lots of brands and we meet them and we're like, okay, what else are you doing? And they're like, what do you mean what else? That's what we do. And we're like, oh my God, that's so dangerous. And just yesterday on the podcast, I interviewed another episode of an Amazon expert, and she also said they've just run a conference for all their Amazon sellers, and the buzzword at the conference was omnichannel. It's not just Amazon people. It's like, where else can you sell the same products in different places to mitigate the risk of one platform perhaps going off, which I suppose in this day and age it's quite possible. So what advice might you have for our listeners around how they could get their product in the hands of some of these big name influencers and celebrities?
Yeah, so I guess I know this is kind of cliche, but consistency is key. Just showing up, because you never know who's really watching your content. It could be a celebrity, it could be your next major retailer, or it could even be, you know, your next really cool brand collab. I was posting twice a week at the beginning, then 3 times, and then daily. So I really worked my way up to it. You don't have to go too hard at the beginning, just like stick to a consistent plan at the start. And I think the other thing would be to tailor your content so it kind of resonates to the audience that you want to reach. So another example is when we had launched Contour Cube, we did a lot of research, and one of the celebrity makeup artists that I really love is Lisa Eldridge, and she's based in the UK, and she's got an amazing YouTube channel, and she's done the makeup for all kinds of celebrities from like Keira Knightley to Dua Lipa. And in one of her videos, she talks about how she loves ice facials as a natural primer. And she goes through all the different ice facial recipes that she loves. So one being like green tea for inflammation, another one for like rose water as an actual toner, and then like lemon for brightening. And I was like, that's so cool. Like, I want to start sharing more of my favorite ice facial recipes on our social channels. And then the beginning of last year, we actually got a lot of traffic from lisaeldridge.com. And basically we ran to her YouTube channel and she had done a beauty haul and she had contour cube in her hands. And she's like, I have bought the contour cube, super excited to try this and stuff. And I was like, oh my gosh, that's so wild. So like literally, if I can do it, you can do it. Like the right people will find you. Just keep showing up.
I love all of that, Sarah. And I noticed yesterday, and I'm going to share this, one of my girlfriends, Lauren, has a brand called Motto Fashion. You'll know Lauren as well, Sarah. She comes to quite a lot of our She-Com events. She's such an epic chick. And she did the coolest reel yesterday. She must have noticed that Isla Fisher had started following her label, and she did a reel that said, hey, Isla Fisher, I'm girl crushing on you. I saw you started following us. I'd made a few wardrobe selections for you. And then did this like cutest ever reel specifically to Isla Fisher and tagged her in it. Now, I thought that was like epically clever because she hasn't just randomly sent product to someone's home hoping that it'll land. She's actually done a reel calling someone out, and it looks so freaking cute and cool. And I thought that was really ingenious.
Yeah, for sure. Definitely. Similar to like the Lisa Eldridge example. Yeah. Being able to tailor your content to kind of reach that specific customer and appeal to them. Like, what is it that they love to do? What is it in their day-to-day life that you can relate, that they can relate to, that you can sort of share with them that might like appeal to them is definitely, yeah, for sure. I don't know if you saw the Who's Elijah example as well. She kind of talked about how her perfume is like the epitome of Sophia Richie. And she's like, if our perfume was any person, it would be Sophia Richie. And then Sophia Richie commented on her thing being like, just ordered. And then she went to go physically deliver it. And so like, also, I guess once these like really cool moments happen, kind of making sure you make the most out of it through your content. Like not everyone will see that post that, for example, Kendall posted, but then I kind of did a video sharing like the craziest thing just happened. And this is the story. This is why I created my product. And now it's in the hands of a celebrity. So what you do with that content afterwards, I think is really important as well, just so that you can kind of like spread the word.
Sometimes you just need someone to look at your business and tell you exactly what to do next. That's where our quick wins calls come in. In just 60 minutes, we'll deep dive into your brand, your numbers, your marketing, and we're going to find those small but mighty tweaks that can make a huge difference in your sales. If you feel like you're spinning your wheels, then let's book a call and find your next quick win together. Head to shecom.co to book your free call today. Yeah, it's the authority, isn't it? So I'm assuming that you would have done some reels about it. You probably even went to the media with it to try and get a Daily Mail story. You would have definitely had it on your website somewhere, even potentially above the fold, as you know, loved by Kendall Jenner. Like where else? Maybe you did an EDM. Like tell us any other innovative ways that you've got to try and pump that celebrity loving your product out.
Yeah, it was definitely mainly through content. Luckily, we had a lot of organic PR just come from it. So her just posting created a lot of organic PR. Same with the Kardashian-Jenner gift guide. It was like a lot of buzz around what products they chose and then just people writing about it, which is really cool. But yeah, I guess it's really awesome to be able to say, you know, as featured on Push or Push Approved, like Push Approved products have this special logo where they have like 5 stars, Push Approved. So we can have that on our platform as well, which is really cool. And then we also like to highlight it in our bio, like where we're stocked. But yeah, other than that, like just mentioning her in our stories and some of our content really is like kind of where we push most of that.
So powerful though, isn't it? It's quite ridiculous really because she's just like us, but it's funny how much weight we put on that. And so do our consumers who are using their credit cards to help us sell products. I want to talk now about Shark Tank because that had a really important place too in the Contour Cube journey. Tell us how Shark Tank came about for you and like what was your experience and outcome?
Yeah, so the Shark Tank is probably my biggest manifestation to date. Like the show hadn't been around for 5 years and my community on TikTok were like commenting, being like, you should like pitch on Shark Tank. And I was like, that's a great idea. I want to try to do it. Let's do that. So I kind of tried to scramble to find if the show was ever going to come back to Australia and there was just no sign of it. And I found this splash page that was like, if you're interested, put your email address in here. So I was like, okay, cool. I'm going to put my email address in here. I'm going to forget about it now because it's been months of obsessing over this. And then like 6 months later, I got an email saying applications are open. You put your interest in for a show. And I was like, oh, okay. If this is what I think it is, this is going to, that'll be really cool. And then basically from there, you did an application, like a video application, a phone call, a Zoom call, and then like a business plan. You had to submit a business plan. So up until that point, it was actually a really good exercise to do already because we're kind of doing like a business audit on our own business, which is great. But basically preparing for the show is a big part of the whole experience. So the preparation was pretty intense. I remember like Lewis would be brushing his teeth and I'd like bust into the bathroom and I'd be like, hi, my name is Sarah. And he'd be like, and my name's Lewis. And I was like, and we're seeking 250K. I'm like, this is training. Like we want to be able to like get this pitch out no matter like how much pressure we're under. So we did like a lot of like ad hoc, like pitch mode moments. We did a lot of practice in my mom's living room. We would play the Shark Tank theme song on YouTube and like walk in the living room. And then my brother would be the like ultimate shark. And it's kind of exactly how we practice on the day. So we'd walk into the tank, they would play the music. And I was so stressed. Like I was drinking so much water, but my mouth was still dry. And then the first thing that I say on national television is I have to pee. I don't even remember saying that. So I like jumped out of my chair and I was like, wait, okay, well, they kept that in there. And then, yeah, so as soon as we like got in, like you don't really notice any cameras. It kind of feels like you're in a private room, which is a good thing. You do all your own hair and makeup and you get a bit of a say in like what your display stand looks like, which is also like quite cool to get like to be involved in that. But yeah, as soon as the pitch was over, it was like kind of a huge relief. And there was a big chunk of the experience that we can now just kind of let go. And really the only part of the experience that you can control as well. And then it just came down to the questions. And I think that we really practiced so hard that like we were able to get our pitch. We were able to say it without any mess ups or anything. And that's why like you only get one shot at doing your pitch. So if you do stuff up, like they're going to keep that in there. There's no editing it out.
And actually they want you to stuff up, right? Because they love you bloopers. So the more you can be perfect, the better you look for yourself as opposed to being able to be made to look stupid on national television, right?
Definitely. Yeah, of course. Like they want to make you squirm. That makes good TV. So yeah, and then having 4 out of the 5 sharks like invest was a really validating moment. But yeah, at the same time, it wasn't really just about the investment. It was just kind of a huge confidence boost knowing that industry leaders really believed in our brand. And yeah, just to have them back us and really great.
And what kind of result has that had for Contour Cube? Like there's the money, but then there's also the connections and what doors they might open for you. Has it been a positive experience all round? And do you still have a lot to do with them?
Yeah, so it definitely changed the way we think about our business. It was really amazing to obviously have them want to invest in the brand, especially because we started this from nothing and like just an idea in my head. So it really gave us a confidence to follow our instincts and realize that what we were working on was really something special. It also kind of really made us think about what kind of growth we actually want. So at first we thought it was investment was like the next logical step. But then going through the process, we realized that we didn't really want to take on that unnecessary pressure before we were ready. So we saw that we could basically scale on our own terms, stay profitable and continue growing without giving up equity too soon. So we did put our Shark Tank deal on hold, but it did really help us like basically refine our vision for the business. And it gave us the momentum and credibility and confidence to go even bigger. And yeah, in a way, I guess it stays true to what we want for Contour Cube in the long term.
Now, let's jump over to a different topic, Sarah, because I want to ask you, and in fairness to you, this wasn't in the pre-podcast draft questions, so I'm just going to wing it your way. Yeah. Let's talk about dupes for a minute. And I want to address this by saying the other day I did a social reel on the Shecom Instagram account about MCO Beauty and Shelley selling for such a huge amount of money and what an inspiration that is for a woman to build a brand and have such a massive exit. And I got a little bit caned because people get really offended about MCO Beauty's duping. And it's a very contentious issue. I mean, part of me understands the offendedness. The other part of me says, well, it's just business. And I suppose it's the greatest compliment anyone could ever give you that they're stealing your idea and duping it. So tell me, I mean, dupes, I know they're part of your story at Contour Cube. Tell me everything about the thought process you've ended up with around dupes.
Yeah, so it's definitely taken a toll on my mental health, especially at the beginning. I think that healthy competition is great and it brings more awareness to ice facials and chilled skincare. And I think I'd be naive to think that I would be the only one in the market forever. But what I struggle with is that a lot of what I see isn't what I would define as healthy competition. It's just very much copycat behavior. And I've seen everything from like brands lifting our content, running them as ads with my face on it, people trying to trademark our trademarks, people using our trademark, people copying our packaging, our website copy, like everything. I've seen it all. And that's the frustrating part because we've literally designed this product from scratch. But I think at the end of the day, brand always wins. We've built trust with our customers and they know our products are FDA approved, BPA free and safe to use on skin. And a lot of the cheaper alternatives, they freeze shut, they break in half, they leak. Like we've had so many customers come back just being like, oh, we should have just got the original from the start. So now I don't really dwell on it. I just focus on staying in our own lane and continuing to innovate. So that's why we've launched like our serum that freezes really beautifully in water, and we're expanding the entire ice facial ecosystem, whether that's different shapes, sizes, accessories, and chilled skincare, which we've developed with Korea. But yeah, I always think about this thing. At the end of the day, if Beauty Blender can exist in Sephora alongside the dozens of knockoffs, we can coexist as well.
I couldn't agree more. And I think you nailed it there where you said brand is more important. And I completely agree with that. That's always what I say to anybody who's upset about healthy or unhealthy competition. It's at the end of the day, nobody's you. And in this particular case, Sarah, your socials are so strongly Sarah, right? Nobody can be you. They might try and steal your content and pretend to be you, but you have to have lawyers in your back pocket and that kind of stuff gets shut down. But you're right. Like people follow people, people trust, like, and buy from people. And I think they'll never have the story or the drive in the same way that you do. And I love that. And any tips that you've got for listeners now around how you navigated the mental health aspect of this? Because, and I preface that question by saying I have literally watched this ruin businesses where women let this infiltrate their head, talk, be that monkey on the shoulder, and they become so obsessed with the competitor that they end up tanking their own brand, and nobody wants that to be an outcome. So how have you navigated this? Any tools or tips for our listeners?
Honestly, it's really hard. I speak to my partners all the time. I get their viewpoints on things, and just hearing other people's perspectives of like, we're not at the race to the bottom, and whoever is buying those cheaper alternatives was never our customer in the first place. So we're building something so much bigger than that. And just remembering that at the end of the day, like, I don't know, it is really, really hard because you've built this baby from scratch. Like, you spend your whole life like thinking about this business 24/7. But I think what's important is kind of removing yourself and seeing it as a business entity and not taking it personally. I think that's really important. So my business is a separate entity to myself. And so I can make data-driven decision-making rather than like emotional ones. And like businesses have their ups and downs. And that is like normal in business, and like having successes and having setbacks isn't a reflection of me or what I'm doing wrong. And like if there's a setback, it's not, I used to think like, oh, I'm not doing enough, but really, yeah, it's just kind of the nature of business and it's the nature of the beast. And that's what I've just come to terms with it. Like if it wasn't a product that really resonated with people wouldn't be jumping on the bandwagon. So I just had to come to terms with that, really.
Yeah, you're onto something good when people are trying to copy you. I agree with that completely. Let's switch track a little bit and talk about wholesale. I'd love to talk about, in particular, what retailers you found success with and maybe where challenges sit around wholesale.
Yeah, so wholesale was a huge surprise for us. One of the things is basically when wholesalers want anywhere between a 50 to 70% margin, but then on top of that, the expectation is to also participate in their promotional activity. So say you want to run 20% off in their stores, that's an additional 20% off that is seller funded. So you would have to cover that extra 20% off. So everything pretty much eats into your profit margins, including the marketing support. And it was quite a big learning curve. Our first retailer, like I mentioned, was Urban Outfitters at the beginning. So learning everything from contracts to understanding how they want the products delivered to their warehouse, barcoding, how they wanted things to be wrapped in OPP bags and all kinds of things. And different retailers want different ways of things being delivered as well. The key thing as well, it kind of really stood out to me was one of the questions they asked was like, how are you going to drive traffic into our stores? So it didn't really feel like a collaborative effort. It was more like, cool, we'll onboard you into our stores, but like, how are you going to drive traffic? So that was kind of eye-opening for me as well. So I think getting stocked in the retailer is kind of just the beginning, and then you've got to have to work as hard to kind of keep that product moving off the shelves.
Yeah, I mean, we see that all the time with really cool brands in our circle that Sarah and I hang out with, where they get amazing contracts. You know, Lou at Strapsicle just got into Officeworks, and then she's like, well, crap, now I've got to drive people to Officeworks to buy my product because it's not enough just to be on a shelf. I risk having the product destocked really quickly if it doesn't move. Most of big retailers have a run rate they're looking for. And if your product doesn't hit their run rates, then you're out again. And I think that becomes a really expensive problem because then you've produced to fill a contract. And then most of the big retailers will charge you to remove product from their stores. So it can become a bit of a nightmare. And I 100% agree with you. I think somebody I've watched do this incredibly well is Iris at Quick Flick. She's been so incredibly good. If you don't follow Quick Flick already, and Iris, go and have a look. She did first start getting ranged. I think it was Coles was her first one, but she literally would do reels almost every day, like saying, oh my God, like in fact, she took it further than just reels. She actually got publicity around it of like, oh my God, I just got pulled up for supposedly shoplifting my own product out of their Coles. You know, like she really hammed it up, and it was very clever. And her, you know, I've had her on the podcast in the past, and she talked about it's my responsibility to drive traffic to that store to buy from them, which, as you said, is contrary to what we all think. We think it's Coles and Woolworths' responsibility to sell them, or any of the big retailers, but that adds a complexity then, doesn't it? And especially if you're also on Amazon and you have your own Shopify store, it's like, man, where do I send my traffic? What's my CTA on a reel?
Yes. I think the other thing as well is like when I looked at wholesale, obviously you want to look at whether it's financially viable or not. But the other side of it is this a marketing play as well? Is being associated with this retailer worth it? Will it elevate your brand? And at the same time, will that add convenience to your customers to be able to walk into a store and get it off the shelves? So making sure it's at least a little bit financially viable. And if the rest of it is a marketing play, then yeah, maybe it might be worth it.
Because it is a marketing play, in my opinion, having product on shelf and finding and acquiring new customers that way, and being clever in your packaging to allow them to come back to your brand by making sure your URL is on there, and maybe some little QR codes that take them to some education pieces on your website so you can start pixel tracking and retargeting them. There's some clever ways to bring them to your own Shopify store where you have a much higher profit margin per customer after you've acquired them from a bricks and mortar store. But it's also authority. I think that's a really important part. I just want to make sure that our beautiful listeners today are understanding, you know, if you've got a product and it's stocked in Coles and Woolies, that when somebody does land on your website is the ultimate authority piece. It's good enough to be stocked there. Therefore, it's eminently trustworthy. And I do think that makes it a bit of a game changer to consider. But I want to know, like, what hurt you about being in retailers? I'm sure there was something. It might be cash flow. I know you've mentioned already having to change your practices and packaging to fit retailers, but is it cash flow is the worst bit, or is there any other negatives to being in, you know, large bricks and mortar stores?
Yeah, it's definitely cash flow. Like payment terms can be like 60 days, end of month, or longer than that. I've actually had a contract recently that was wanting a 70% margin. And I was like, oh, like I kind of love the idea of being in that store, but that's a bit of a wild one. So at the beginning, I used to be like, oh, I want to jump at every single opportunity that I have to get into any store. One experience we had was getting into Chemist Warehouse in New Zealand, and we did everything we can to get the product in just before Christmas. And we actually spent our own money to get the stock directly to New Zealand, to get it just before, I think we had 10 days before Christmas, but then they didn't get them on the shelves until like maybe a couple of days, maybe 3-4 days or something before Christmas. Like it was a bit too late. That was one thing that kind of like is a bit of a disappointment, because we tried and scrambled, and we always kind of, especially the small businesses, do everything in their power to kind of make it happen. But then on the other side, like when they're not able to kind of pull their weight, it's kind of a big shame and a big loss. So yeah, that was an experience that we had.
I actually can't remember who was telling me this story, because I speak to so many incredible women all the time, but somebody told me a horrifying story last week that they got ranged in Woolworths. and it was something like around about 150 stores. And when the product was meant to be on shelf everywhere, they were getting no traffic, no social pull, like really no chatter. So she ran into a couple of different stores, couldn't find it anywhere. Somebody went out the back looking for product, and it turned out that of 150 stores, it ended up on shelf of about 5 or 6 of them. The rest, it got lost in translation. It ended up just a box out the back, whatever reason. It literally didn't get ranged properly. So you're right, like small business does everything they can to ensure that the stock is available, and we assume that the big retailers are going to treat it with the same love that we bring to them, but it doesn't always equate that way. And I think that's just part of doing business. And you said something really wise earlier, and I just want to reframe it, which is that, I am not my product and my product is not me. And I think learning to have a degree of separation from the business is the only way to savor your mindset moving forward, because otherwise we get too attached and we think that every kick that comes to our business is a kick in our own gut, and it ends up like becoming a really overwhelming place to come from. So a long time ago, I learnt this lesson really, in a tough way, which was that we can't take it personally, literally.
Yeah, definitely. Like a slow period doesn't mean that you failed, and one flop doesn't erase all your wins, and you're definitely more than your business, and it doesn't define you.
All of those. Let me guess, you've built a successful brand, but now you're feeling stretched, stuck, and unsure how to scale to the next level. I see it all the time. The truth is, what got you here won't get you there. That's where SheCom's Scale Mastermind program comes in. We've helped so many women grow from 6 to multiple 6 and even 7 figures without sacrificing their sanity. If you're ready for real strategic support and to be surrounded by women who truly get it, come join us. You don't have to figure this out alone. Head to shecom.co and take that next step. So tell us about the skincare. Like, it's a whole different ball game, and I'm just so excited for you. I knew you were going into skincare, but I didn't realize it was like this freezer facial piece. The minute you've said that, and you're speaking to the world's biggest consumer on the other side of the podcast right now, my family call me the lotions and potions queen. So I don't do frozen facials, but the minute you've said there's a frozen serum, I'm like, wait, what? And then it's Korean. I'm like, I'm in. When am I in, Sarah? Tell me about like the challenges and then the opportunities this does for Contour Cube.
Yeah, definitely. So what we noticed in the market was our customers already really loving the DIY side of their ice facials. So they would create their own kind of recipes, from cucumber ice facials to coconut milk. And they were freezing their own kind of serums in there as well. And that's kind of when we saw the opportunity of, I love the idea of doing my own facials, but at the same time, let's make the whole recipe side of the business a lot easier. I guess the key challenge with skincare is that it takes way longer than like the tooling that we create. Every claim on your packaging needs to be validated. You have to check whether the formulas can be imported into Australia or around the world. And it takes anywhere between like 6 months to a year to formulate. And there's a lot of back and forth and perfecting that formula and whatnot. So bringing skincare to market really isn't fast. It takes a lot of patience and compliance and testing, but it's been really, really epic to see like our customers really loving what we've come up with. So yeah, a freezable serum that you add to your cube, which is packed with a lot of skincare ingredients like hyaluronic acid and niacinamide, but also cucumber extract, aloe extract, kakadu plum extract, which we spent ages formulating with Korea. And we really wanted to create a serum that froze really well in water. So some of the testing that we did, it didn't freeze properly. Like it would freeze at the top of the ice or at the bottom of the ice. And once we nailed that formula where it was frozen like perfectly evenly throughout the cube, we're like, oh my gosh, this is so exciting. And we definitely turned to Korea because they are the kings of skincare. Like there's no one who could have done it better than them.
That's very exciting. And I really look forward to that arriving. Is it far away?
So we actually launched that last year, but we're looking to like expand the range even further now that we've seen such great feedback from our customers around it. So yeah.
Incredible. So I want to just tell our listeners something really exciting right now. If you've enjoyed listening to Sarah today on the podcast, because she's an absolute ninja at building Contour Cube and all of the viral video expertise that she holds. And if you're not already following Contour Cube on TikTok and Instagram, you need to go and do it right now because Sarah is really good at producing content herself. Sarah's actually a coach here at SheCom and is in our programs, helping our women every week with ways that they can also recreate videos themselves to get new followers, engagement, and sales. And so, Sarah, I'm going to put you on the spot right now and First of all, I guess I should thank you for the incredible amount of genius that you bring to our programs and our stages here at SheCom. We are so lucky to have you in our team. Makes me very happy. When you speak, I literally my jaw opens and I just listen. Sarah did an intensive session that went for about 30 minutes recently for our clients. And I was like, it was this incredible presentation of what's happening right now in 2025 in viral video. And I literally hung off every word. It was incredibly inspiring. What is happening? As the very last question today on the potty, tell us what's happening in trends right now in 2025. What are you seeing and what are you helping our clients with that might give our listeners today some ideas around what they should be focusing on right now?
I think that since the beginning, storytelling has been such a massive part of our TikTok growth. So sharing the inspiration behind your business. I know it sounds really weird to film the most mundane moments of your life, but literally setting up your camera, putting it on time lapse, and any part of your business that you can share with your customers and your audience is actually something they want to see. I think before TikTok existed, it was very faceless corporations, and we didn't have any idea what was going on behind the scenes. Brands would just launch a range, and you'll be like, okay, we had no idea why you launched that or what that is about. But now it's all about taking you through every step of the way from prototyping all the way to the final product. I've seen recently an account where she's literally just sharing her whole experience from the beginning. She doesn't have the product yet. She's just started like I did with a 3D printer, and she 3D printed a prototype. And she's like, what do you guys think? And taking their audience on a journey with them. So I think that is so important. Ask questions to your customers, ask what do they want to see with you, and create and co-create products together. So that's definitely what I'm seeing. I think I'm seeing a lot of a series style content. So people wanting to know about you and your product and your brand just by you would watch a Netflix series. Think about, what would episode 1 look like, and share as much as you can to get people coming back. Just an example, with our Shark Tank episode, for example, we posted part 1 of our Shark Tank episode, and that went viral, and everyone was like, oh my God, we want a part 2. So we posted part 2, and it kind of daisy chained all our videos together, and people wanted to keep coming back for the next one and the next one. So I definitely say, thinking of a series to come up with is something that I'm seeing a lot of lately.
My brain is already off on a tangent on the series thing. I've, for a long time, wanted to do more with this kind of storytelling on, I suppose, longer video than just reels, and highlighting incredible women doing amazing stuff with products. So my brain just went right off on a little tangent with that, but I'll come back to the potty, and I'll thank you very much today, Sarah, for sharing your wisdom with us here over at She Talks. We love having you in our community. Thank you for your wisdom today, and wish you a beautiful day ahead.
Thank you so much for having me.
Thanks for tuning in to another episode of She Talks. I hope today's conversation sparked ideas, gave you strategies you can put into action, and reminded you that you're never alone on this journey. If you loved this episode, head over to shecom.co for today's show notes, exclusive freebies, and special offers from our sponsors. And if you haven't already, hit subscribe so you never miss a future episode. Until next time, keep showing up, keep building, and most importantly, keep talking.